Hi, Dave Sobel here, host of the Business of Tech podcast, on site at the Acronis CyberFit Summit here in Miami, and I'm talking with Harry Brelsford of SMBNation. Thanks for joining me.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm good. So I want to actually talk about something a little different than what you normally get asked on these things, because you've actually been spending a lot of time on something that I'm always fascinated by, is learning a deep industry, going deep on virtualization. And the one you're working on is a little different than what might jump to mind, because you're working on the marijuana industry. Tell me a little bit about what's going on in that space.
Yeah. So quickly, what got me to today, then I'll report on the state of the nation. But I got in 5 years ago, so I wrapped an analytics startup, and then the Seattle, where I lived, was a natural act, right, with developers, tech, and legal cannabis. And so 5 years later, I've been able to reposition myself as a principal analyst to private equity firms, VCs. I thought they'd be my clients, Dave. My real clients are the ISVs who are hiring me, 10 hours here, 10 hours there to lay it out and save them hundreds of hours. But now let's talk about the state of the union. And again, I only speak towards the business side and the tech side. That's the first point. It's a huge industry. When people say oil, well, oil field services is a huge industry, right? Trucks, security, drillers, that kind of thing. And it's the same. So I'm in a vertical within a vertical. But what you're seeing is the proliferation of ISVs entering the space. I'll give you an example. When I started doing my logo chart, the ecosystem logo chart a year ago, I maybe had 6 seed to sale ISVs. Just this last week was the world's largest cannabis business conference in LA, MJ BizCon. It was live, 26,000 attendees, 1,000 booths. And now that logo chart needs to be updated. It's probably 3 dozen seed to sale ISVs. So I'm showing you the sector growth and the momentum. Now, of course, there'll be consolidation, and a couple acquisitions were announced. It's just an industry that will start to mature. So that's one consideration. The other is there's still time to get involved as an IT professional or an MSP, because thank goodness it's a slow rollout. Right? It's not like they flipped the switch at the end of Prohibition one fine day, and all of a sudden it was all the states legal with liquor that day. So it's a slow roll, which means you haven't missed the boat, right?
Right. So this is where it gets interesting to me. So help me understand, what's the biggest difference from kind of general service that this industry struggles with?
Compliance and traceability. So we mirror the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, there's analogy, the wine industry, the retail. For me, it's really about compliance, and all that software, seed to sale, and everything has to integrate with the compliance software to accurately report the sales data and the taxation data to the state. In the state of Washington, it's the Liquor and Cannabis Control Board, and that's what keeps the business owners up at night. Because, Dave, if they God bless them, but if they so much as lose one thing in inventory or misreport, you will be fined, and you might get shut down.
So that's fascinating, because that does parallel what we talk about in regulation in other industries, right? You've got to go deep on a particular industry, understand the laws, and apply that. So I'm not versed in this particular field, but one of the things I've heard about, and I'd love to hear your take on, is that a difficulty for providers looking at this is because of the federal regulations around this, that banking is a struggle, and portions of this business are cash only. Is that true? How does that affect providers here?
No, well, it doesn't. It doesn't affect the providers. So think of it this way, by analogy. I've teamed with the world's largest cannabis law firm out of LA, Zuber Lawler. They're in 11 cities. That's what they do, right out of LA law, casting, right. They really are. And they are a law firm. They get paid by people who are in the cannabis business, right? So it might be an investor, it might be a dispensary owner looking to acquire another dispensary. The law firm gets paid. They're not at risk. They do the practice of law, right? They don't touch the flower, and they get paid just fine. So an IT service provider is much closer to a law firm or a CPA organization. And Dave, you'll love this. There is an organization for Cannabis CPAs and Bookkeepers trade group.
That's fascinating.
Out of Bend, Oregon.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so we're not at risk at all. Obviously, you don't want to cross state. If you're on the lifestyle side, don't cross state line. You know, there's the do nots. And just don't touch the flower.
But I think what we're talking about here shows where the actual business value is in understanding how the business is done, and then apply those principles to the technology. That sound like a fair assessment?
And again, there's probably, I gave you one workload that's different with compliance. There's, when I wrote the book on how to be a cannabis MSP, we basically talked about 6 unique workloads. One that comes to mind is security, and it's both physical and cyber, of course. But more importantly, a really good example, on a recent visit back to Anchorage, Alaska, one of our leading MSPs in the space, Dan Foote, took me to one of his vertically integrated cannabis clients, so grow, manufacture, and sell all on the same site. And the video camera, the video storage requirements are incredible, 40 hours per camera. And they probably had an array of 70 cameras covering the whole facility. So 40 times 70, you're not storing that in the cloud, let me tell you that.
Yeah. So Harry, this is fascinating. If somebody was looking to learn more, where's a good place for them to start?
Well, a couple of things. One would be my site, 420 MSP, right, where we're helping to get people up to speed. But you need to go to all the sites. So MJ Biz Daily, Marijuana Business Daily, is probably the leading publisher. And then there's some thought leaders, much like you in our traditional space. The guy over at Ganjapreneur does a really good job. Marijuana Venture Magazine. So it's like anything, you need to read, study, and not just read one book. Yeah,
and I think there's tons of lessons here on both this industry, but any industry in general. So Harry, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you. No, good conversation.
There you go.
Oh, do you want me to?
So Harry, give me an example of like a vendor that's involved here that's working in this industry.
Yeah, it's surprising. So ScanSource is out on the floor behind us, and I've been talking to them. It's a different division, their point of sale division, but the gentleman here was knowledgeable of a pilot program they're running with dispensaries in Southern California. So that was wow, ScanSource is here. I mean, that's great, but does that make sense? It shows how this is becoming a mainstream, legitimate technology opportunity.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me.